In Montgomery County, officials have announced the arrest of a man in one of the most heinous crimes one could imagine. 29-year-old Austin Stevens has been charged with deviant sexual intercourse in connection to the death of his 10-month-old daughter. Action News reporter Christy Aletto is live at Lower Providence Police. Christy.
That's right, Jim. The district attorney called it deeply disturbing. He says the 10-month-old was assaulted and raped by her own father. And apparently when she stopped breathing, it's alleged that he waited over an hour before calling for help.
Saturday was a nightmare for all of us.
Montgomery County District Attorney Kevin Steele describing what happened when paramedics were finally called to the 3400 block of Germantown Pike. An unresponsive 10-month-old Zara Scrugs was discovered with...
It's hard to imagine how the death of a child could be any more devastating. But this case forces us to confront exactly that. The 911 call began with a chilling calmness, not from a frantic neighbor, not from a desperate bystander, but from her own father. His tone was measured, almost detached, as he reported that his daughter wasn't breathing. On the other end of that line, emergency dispatchers brace themselves. Inside a cold, dim apartment with no heat, no light, and no working water, 10-month-old Zara Lynn Scrugs was found lying motionless on a bare mattress. No sound, no cry, no heartbeat.
Little baby. Ooh, give those. Give those toes. Give those toes. Little baby. Little baby. Little baby.
It's hard to imagine how this child's death could be any more traumatic.
I'm gonna miss her.
She didn't make a sound, no cry, no breath, no heartbeat. That's how the call began, not from a neighbor, not from a bystander, but from her father. Calm, measured, detached. Inside a bare apartment with no heat, no lights, and no working water, a 10-month-old baby girl was found lying motionless, lying still on a mattress. There were no immediate signs of distress, no visible injuries, but something about the scene didn't add up. The water was still.
What responders saw didn't immediately add up. The water was still, the diaper was clean, there were no visible injuries. Yet something about the scene felt wrong. And while medical teams rushed to revive her, her father stood nearby, not panicked, not weeping, but eerily silent, watching as though the outcome had already been decided. Her name was Zara Lynn Scrugs. She was only days away from celebrating her very first birthday. Her mother called her Moo, a sweet nickname that had no deeper meaning except that it belonged to love. Zara was radiant, expressive, curious, and filled with a light that made people smile the moment she entered a room. For her mother, Erica Scruggs, she was everything. Erica's friend said she was the kind of mom who built her world around her child. Every giggle, every babble, every milestone was recorded with pride. She lived for Zara. And then in a single night, it was gone. But this was no tragic accident. What unfolded would horrify not just Erica, not just Zara's grandparents and loved ones, but an entire community. Because this story was not just about the death of a baby. It was about betrayal, lies, and a father whose actions raised haunting questions. To understand what happened, we need to step back. Zara was born on December 1st, 2019. Her parents, Erica and Austin Stevens, were no longer together but had agreed to co-parent peacefully. Erica was a primary caregiver, while Austin occasionally took Zara for weekends. This was not a formal court arrangement, just a mutual agreement based on familiarity and a desire to keep things civil. On the surface, Austin Stevens seemed steady. At 29, he was a youth football coach for the Lower Providence Warriors. He also co-owned a construction business. He dressed neatly, spoke politely, and carried himself as if he had his life under control. To outsiders, nothing was alarming about him. No criminal history, no dramatic outbursts. Nothing suggested danger. So when he came to pick up Zara that October weekend in 2020, no one hesitated. Erica's father, Zara's grandfather, handed the little girl over like usual. Austin mentioned that his new apartment wasn't fully set up yet, that utilities weren't all connected. But moving often comes with inconveniences. No one thought twice. It was just another weekend handoff. That silence, that trust would prove fatal. Austin's new apartment sat at 3400 Germantown Pike in Lower Providence Township, Pennsylvania. It was scarcely furnished, without heat, hot water, or electricity. Temperatures hovered in the high 50s inside. Still, Austin brought Zara there for the night. Between 9:27 and 10:22 p.m., Austin was preoccupied with his phone. And what investigators later uncovered in his search history was deeply disturbing. During that span of time, he typed chilling queries such as, if baby stops breathing, what if you don't hear baby heartbeat, and how do you know if a baby is dead? Yet, even as he searched for answers to these grim questions, he carried on with an entirely different side of his life. He was active on social media, casually flirting with 2 different women, sending them photos of himself, and engaging in light-hearted conversation, an unsettling contrast of the dark thoughts reflected in his searches. While his baby daughter lay dying or already dead, Austin alternated between Googling medical crises and joking online with strangers. Finally, at 10:40 p.m., he dialed 911. He told dispatchers that Zara had slipped in the bath, hit her head, and become unresponsive. He said he had stepped away briefly and returned to find her that way. But when first responders arrived, the story crumbled. The bathtub was bone dry. Zara was not wet. She wore only a clean diaper. The room was cold and dark. Nothing about the environment matched Austin's claims. What stood out even more was his demeanor. Paramedics said he seemed oddly calm, detached, even uninterested, as they worked desperately to save his child. He stood back, offering no comfort, no urgency, no visible grief. At 12:12 a.m. on October 4th, doctors pronounced Zara dead. The case immediately went to Montgomery County's Office of the Coroner. Dr. Frederick Hellman performed the autopsy. His conclusion was stark. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. The manner of death, homicide. With this determination, investigators turned back to Austin. They secured his phone and began analyzing its contents. The timeline they reconstructed was devastating. While Zara was in distress, Austin had been Googling how to know if a baby is dead. He had also been sexting women. He had waited more than an hour before finally calling 911. Evidence from the apartment only deepened suspicion. Forensic testing of Zara's diaper revealed biological material that contradicted Austin's explanation of a slip in the bath. Piece by piece, the story fell apart.
Imagine how this child's death could be any more traumatic. Sexual assault on an infant is heinous.
Court records reveal the infant had blunt force trauma to the head and was raped, and that the 29-year-old father conducted multiple Google searches, including how do you know if a baby is dead, in the hour after she stopped breathing before ever calling 911.
Stevens also conducted social media and text conversations with 2 women during the time that were not related to the baby's condition, followed by the inaction of her father to save her life, all led to this child's death.
According to his social media and friends, Stevens is a co-owner of Black Diamond Construction. His colleagues say this is not his character and think there are some other variables in play resulting in the charges.
On October 6th, just 2 days later, detectives arrested Austin Stevens. His initial charges included aggravated assault, involuntary deviate sexual intercourse, and endangering the welfare of a child. He was placed in Montgomery County Correctional Facility without bail. By December 1st, prosecutors escalated the charges to include first and third-degree murder. District Attorney Kevin R. Steele, alongside Assistant District Attorneys Edward McCann and Brianna Ringwood, announced their intent to pursue justice with the full weight of evidence. The community was stunned. Parents who once trusted Stevens as a youth coach now saw him as a predator. Even his own mother disowned him publicly, calling him a monster and stating clearly, "We do not support him. We are completely against what he did to my granddaughter." Her words captured the raw horror of a family forced to choose between blood and morality. And choosing rightly, they stood with Zara. In the days following Zara's death, her mother Erica was surrounded by an outpouring of support. A GoFundMe launched in Zara's memory quickly raised over $46,000. Hundreds of strangers left comments expressing heartbreak and solidarity. At her funeral, more than 500 mourners attended. Photographs of Zara were displayed with soft music. People shared memories. Even those who had never met her felt compelled to honor her life. This case was no longer just about one family. It had become a symbol, a reminder that evil can sometimes wear a mask of normalcy, that harm can come from those we least expect. Court proceedings stretched out due to pandemic delays, but by March 2022 the case moved forward. The prosecution strategy was meticulous. They laid out the timeline minute by minute, using Stevens' phone records as the backbone. Every search term, every message, every moment of delay was accounted for. The evidence showed not panic, but awareness and deliberate inaction. They brought in paramedics who testified about his eerie calmness. They presented forensic experts who refuted his bathtub story. They highlighted how his digital behavior revealed a man more interested in flirting than saving his daughter. The defense tried to argue confusion and fear, that Austin wasn't malicious, but simply overwhelmed. But the timestamps told a different story. Fear does not spend an hour chatting online, while a baby lies unresponsive. Confusion does not invent a bathtub accident that never happened. The jury saw through it. Austin Stevens was convicted of first-degree murder, along with related charges. The court sentenced him to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. For Erica, for Zara's grandparents, for the hundreds who stood at her funeral, it was a measure of justice, but never enough. No sentence could return the little girl, whose smile lit up every room. No punishment could erase the betrayal of trust. But what justice could do was send a message: silence and delay are choices. And in this case, those choices cost a life. Zara's story is haunting because it did not come with flashing red warnings. It came quietly, in the form of a father who looked respectable, a routine handoff between co-parents, an apartment no one thought to question. And that's why it matters that we tell her story. Because silence is what predators rely on. Because trust, when unchecked, can become a mask. And because every one of us, whether parent, neighbor, or friend, has a responsibility to notice when something feels wrong. Today, Zara's memory lives on not only in her family's grief, but in the awareness sparked by her case. Her life, though short, continues to remind us why vigilance matters. So if you've ever been in a situation where something felt off, speak up. If you've ever seen a parent's story not match the signs, ask questions. Because sometimes the smallest intervention can change everything. And finally, let us honor Erica and every mother who has faced the unimaginable. If you believe in justice, in protecting the innocent, and in giving a voice to those who can no longer speak, please give this video a like, share to spread awareness, and join us in remembering little Zara. For the mothers who forgive the unforgivable, for the families who carry the scars of silence, and for the children who deserve more, your story matters, and we will not stop telling it. But it leaves us with one haunting question. How could a father like Austin Stevens search for answers on death while his own baby, Zara Lynn, needed him the most?